Chapter 1, The Rock. Early history of the island. The first chapter, it talks about how the gold rush was overpopulated and how it started to become a jail in 1861 because the Civil War and Alcatraz Island was a Confederate army and it was supported by the government. All the soldiers that got caught got sent there, and all the Indians that fought back, and the people would see what happens when they fight back. The prison filled up quickly, and the prison was finished in 1912. It had 3 floors. It holds up to 600 prisoners. In 1933, it was announced the toughest prison in the country. They were solitary confinement, and it had no one to talk to, nothing to look at in the cell. The prison was closed in 1963 because they couldn't afford shipments, so they closed it down.
In the 1960s, U.S. state comes had racist laws keeping the African Americans from mixing the white people, and women had fewer rights than men did. The Vietnam War, they forced the young men to go to war. People got angry and wanted equal rights, so they started protecting them. Started a movement called the Peace Walk. The government had to think of the social problems more, and more people started to pay attention to the movement of the people. To support equal rights, it began passing the laws to protect the people's rights. Then they protected the people who took their rights away and saw how effective it was. Then the people started to join them, and the African Americans have laws to protect their rights. In 1868, the government and the Syriacs tribe had a peace treaty about the Alcatraz Island, so they have legalized rights to the island. Then the government broke their promise and took the Indians to court. And they did not win, and they did not gain control.
Many Indian tribals used a San Francisco Indian Center. It was a great place for Indians to go, but it burned down in 1969. They wanted a new center. Group wanted the center of Alcatraz Island. The group called itself ITO. It stood for the Indian tribals. They asked the government for the Indian, and the government ignored them. This Indian and Fredo the Island. They wanted the news to know. They called reporters to watch them. November 1969, the reporters met the Indians on the dog boat. Tribals rented a boat. The boats were supposed to take the trouble to the island, but the boats never showed up.
On the first days of the island, the Indians had a lot of work to do. They had to cook, and they had to form a school, and they could vote, and they voted for a new leader. They started out with 100 people on the island, and they started to work on the apartments, and they only had 3 toilets, so they had to work on that. They were starting to teach kids math, Indian language, and science. They had to sleep in jail cells, and it was cold. And they were worried that the building would fall apart, so they got a volunteer and started security. Then the Indians started to refuse to get off the island, and they weren't hurting anyone. The people were watching the Indians and how their problems and how the government were treating them bad and unfairly.
Chapter 5, Breaking the Rock. People on the island were already arguing then